We're back, people. What is up? Another nice little stream going on here. Miami Dolphins discussion, some things I wanted to go over, and then just like take some questions. Talk Dolphins, talk football. First thing I kind of wanted to mention, because the schedule release happened. By Sharp Football, they do like this thing where like they give you like the rest edge that you get from your schedule, and the Dolphins actually have the second highest net rest edge at plus 11, only behind Detroit at plus 13. So it seems like they have like a good amount of rest kind of built into their schedule, which is always very helpful because I believe, let me take a look. Yeah, Kyle Krabs, he also posted like on Twitter. There's some things, the Dolphins, positives, negatives, but the last time they had like this amount of positive net rest was 2023, 2022, and 2016, and those are the last 3 times they made the playoffs. So it is a pretty big advantage. It seems like, the pattern continues. So just kind of wanted to mention that because those are kind of the things that I think can go unnoticed when you just look at it, face value. But you can see like the Dolphins schedule is pretty favorable. And you go on Twitter, we'll talk about some of this. I've seen people, they're really down on the Dolphins. Like I believe Alex Rollins is a pretty big YouTuber. He thinks the Dolphins have the potential to be the worst team in the league. Like that, and I can understand why people are down on the Dolphins this year, especially from the outside looking in. I think there's definitely, they've seen the Dolphins regress. They think there might be some problems in the locker room. They think they're just going to be, this is the year they collapse. I can understand that. But also I feel like the only way I could see them being the worst team in the league is if like Tua missed the whole season. And even then, I still don't know if they'd be the worst team. Like, I could see them being towards the bottom. But worst team is, like, gassing it for sure. Like, I still feel like they're going to be, like, mid-pack. And if things go their way, they could easily go. They have a favorable schedule. Things go their way. They stay healthy. Things go pretty well. Flem, shout out Flem. Thank you for the super chat. Do you think Tua is a top 16 QB? Yeah, I would say so. I think the thing, like, for me, kind of how I look at the QB rankings, I think after you get past the top 5, you can go in a lot of different directions. I think, like, there's only a few elite quarterbacks in the league, like, truly elite. After that, it's really just, like, depends on your team, right? Like, yes, you could argue certain quarterbacks are maybe better than Tua, but would any of them be better in McDaniel's system? No, a lot of the quarterbacks in the league wouldn't be better in McDaniel's system. So, like, for the Mike McDaniel system, Tua is, like, probably, around, like, top 7, top 5 QB in the league. But then if you're, like, maybe in a different scheme, you could argue he's in a different spot. That's why I feel like, I don't know, once you get past the top 5, it's all just, like, preference and scheme fit and, like, where you are matters so much. So, yeah, that's kind of, like, how I view it. I don't necessarily care too much about the rankings because I think you could argue him around, that 10 range, and I've seen people argue him in that 20 range, and it's like there's a lot of good QBs. I think it just depends on that sort of perspective because once you get past like the Josh Allens, the Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, it's a lot of toss-ups. Yeah, what's up, guys? But yeah, shut up. Flem, I believe you love Jaylen Waddle, right? I think that's what I remember. If there's a narrative that I am protecting, I will be pushing this season. Like, if there's a narrative that I need to prove wrong, it is the Jaylen Waddle negativity that I've seen. I've seen people push some crazy Jaylen Waddle stuff, like thinking he's not that good, pushing Waddle and Hill down as a duo because they don't think Waddle. Like, I've seen people saying George Pickens is better and stuff like that, since that trade. And I just feel like, the recency bias is going crazy because he had a little bit of a down season because he had injuries. The Dolphins just offense had injuries in general. They just had a down year, but he's still a very talented player. Also, another thing I want to show, Cole Plant posted this on Twitter. He said, Chop Robinson, probably the best edge rookie last season. Him and Kenneth Grant moved me, which I thought was interesting because a lot of people in the comments were like, hey, Jared Verse won Defensive Rookie of the Year, so he was the best rookie edge. But, like, I actually think if you look at the second half of the season, like I think it's understandable why Verse won because it's a stats thing. He had better stats and was like more consistent the whole season. But I think if you compare the second half of the years, Chop was the better player on film. He was the more disruptive player. He was the one getting more attention. And like he just had more consistent wins in the second half of the season as a pure pass rusher than Verse did. And, I think that might be a hot take. And Verse was also very good, but Chop was so dominant. I think that's something, that's another one that I think people have started to even underrate a bit. Chop was the biggest bright spot of last year. I don't even think it's really that close. Like, I think the biggest bright spots last year were like Chop Robinson, Aaron Brewer, Jordan Brooks, a lot of your free agent additions, those types of guys. But Chop being like your first round rookie and playing that well. Like, it's actually crazy to me that Chop was a first round rookie that some people were down on, but he played so well, and people still are trying to say like he's not a good player. Like, even in the Dolphins fan base, it's genuinely wild to me, like, that people will have those types of takes. Like, there's other ones where I can understand people being a little more concerned about players, but the Chop thing makes no sense. I've seen Waddle's the 8th, Oh, it's crazy for him. It's crazy. Because he's not even he's our wide receiver 2, but he's not even really a wide receiver 2. Like, if Tyreek Hill was not on this team, Jaylen Waddle would be putting up crazy numbers and would have so much respect, because it's really all a numbers game when you look at it from like, casual fans' perspective, especially fans of other teams. Like, that's all they notice. Like, they're just going to see the numbers. And like, a lot of people play fantasy football, and Waddle wasn't very good in fantasy last season because of that. But like, when he was having good statistical years, I don't know. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. I've said this before. If Tyreek leaves after this season, Waddle sticks around. If Waddle stays a Dolphin his whole career, he's probably going to hold all the receiving records for the Dolphins if he stays a Dolphin his entire career, and his end up being like, best Dolphins receiver. It wouldn't, like, he has that type of talent. The Waddle stuff pisses me off. Yep, bright and early today. I kind of like doing some early streams on the weekends, and then I think during the weekdays I like doing, more of like the later afternoon, maybe a little before evening type of streams. Yeah, but hit me with any questions you got. Like, people are out here they have some, like, I didn't realize how, I knew people were down on the Dolphins this year, but like, people thinking like they could be the worst team is a little bit pushing it for me. Like, I could see them having a worse season, but even then, like I look at last year, like, yes, you had an easy schedule last year. I also think the schedule is pretty favorable this year, so that kind of like evens out. But like, even last year, I feel like last year felt as bad as it could get. It felt so bad. Like, the hope in the season was over. Like, Tua missed a bunch of games. It felt like you weren't even competing, and you still went 8-9. So you're still like mid-pack, and it felt like really, really terrible. So the only way I see them being really that bad is like Tua injury. And even with like a big Tua injury, like, that means I think the offensive line would have to suffer injuries, because I do think the quarterback situation after Tua is better than it was in previous seasons. So that would help out with a Tua injury. I don't think it would be like great, but I don't know. And even if they are the worst team in the league, it's actually not. It wouldn't be the worst thing ever, because then you'd probably end up with the first overall pick. And if you end up with the first overall pick, the Dolphins could, I think, turn things around pretty quickly. Yeah. Nuggets or Thunder? I don't know. I'm not super, like, I do like the NBA, but I'm not like super on the inside. I guess I would just bet Nuggets, because I know, like, I feel like they clutch up when they need to. It's so weird, because it feels like Jokic doesn't love basketball, but he just makes the big plays when they need to be made. Do you think 17 will be more involved this year? I do. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is the year where Waddle even outperforms Tyreek from like a statistical standpoint. I didn't think in any of the other seasons that would happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if like they have very similar statistical outputs this season. Because if you look at last year, like, there was the game versus the Patriots, I believe. It was the Patriots game, where they were both playing, they were both healthy, and they just let Waddle cook. Like, Waddle was cooking everyone in that Patriots secondary, even Christian Gonzalez. Because truly last year, Waddle was your best receiver versus man-to-man coverage, like one-on-one, and Patriots decided to go man-to-man. And he's always been like your best receiver versus cover 2 as well. Like he has the best statistical outlook versus cover 2. Tyreek usually does the best versus cover 3 and like quarters looks. So it kind of probably depends on your what defensive looks are giving you, but I don't know. I would be trying to. It feels like this is Tyreek's last season. If he didn't get traded this year, next year is his last year. You look at what you can say from him money wise, and you look at all the antics he's having. So I feel like they should be trying to transition Waddle into like that main role anyways. So I think they're gonna have a pretty similar statistical outlook. Right, our thoughts on Jonnu? Do you see a regression of Waddle as force fed? Regression maybe in terms of stats, but I think Jonnu will still be like just as impactful. Like maybe I think the Dolphins don't want to do what they did last year in terms of like so many screens. You know, I feel like Jonnu got a lot of underneath work. He got some screen work. He was taking advantage of like the cover 2 looks that defenses were giving. But I think the main reason I think he won't be as force fed is because the Dolphins will have more of a running game this season. If the Dolphins have more of a running game, that means they should be able to work their play action stuff. They should be able to take more downfield shots. So I think they're going to try to go back more to that 2023 form. Because to me, that was what each one was missing. 2023, you were missing that underneath threat to take advantage of the defenses playing deeper on in the season. Then you added Jonnu. But then in 2024, you weren't able to push the ball down the field. And you weren't able to run the ball. So now, hopefully, you're hoping to be able to run the ball. You're hoping still Tyreek and Waddle can stretch the field, which obviously they can. And then you're hoping Jonnu and like Achane can take advantage of the underneath stuff when teams do play with a lot of depth. So that's kind of the combo that you're looking for, and you've kind of just haven't had it all together. So I think Jonnu will still be quite effective. But maybe there will be games where he's not as statistically used, but he'll still be very important to the overall offense, I feel. Jonnu was a great add. I still want to add a wide tight end. Wide tight end's like the one position they've just been kind of ignoring, like an actual stud wide tight end. I've been asking for it for years. Feels like it's just not going to happen, but Bleacher Report predicted the top cuts from each team. They predicted Madison for the Dolphins due to drafting Gordon. I'm not sure you. I would not predict that, but I would be okay with it. I think the only reason I wouldn't predict it is because the Dolphins have traditionally, since McDaniel's been here, kept 4 running backs. And the 4 running backs would obviously be Achane, Wright, Madison, and Gordon. So I think they're probably going to keep all 4. But if they were to keep 3, yeah, I believe Madison would be the one to get cut. And I would be okay with that. I'm not the biggest Madison fan. I don't think he's like a necessary player to have on the roster. If he's on the roster, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah. Going to Dolphins Colts week 1, yeah. I might go to Dolphins Falcons in Atlanta, so we'll see. Yeah, offensively, I don't have a ton of question marks. I think really where I'm worried, yeah, you mentioned Patrick Paul. I'm actually not super concerned about Patrick Paul. I'm more concerned about the O-line depth. Like I think starting wise, like you're going to be fine. Like if Paul's in there and you got your full starting crew, like your O-line is going to be more than capable, especially as in the running game. I think they'll be able to create push. They're all good athletes. Paul is not a perfect player by any means, but I don't think he's as big as like a hindrance to the offense as the guards were last year. Like Eichenberg and Jones were like the big problems last year. I think Paul is good enough in the scheme to be fine. I think more worried about the offense is O-line depth. And then I still think wide tight end is like a position you can upgrade at. But I think running back, you're totally good. Receiver, you're totally good. If everything is good, like your QB play will be good enough. I think O-line depth is really where you can see a huge fall off offensively. And then defense, obviously we know the problem with the defense is the secondary. Maybe your linebacker 2 spot, you have some question marks, but I'm not super concerned about linebacker 2. I think it's good. It's serviceable enough with your defensive front. The secondary is like the biggest question mark on the team. What I can say is the difference I really liked from 2022 first 20 was that he didn't force feed Tyreek, which, yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't need to force feed Tyreek, but I do think they need to force the ball downfield a little bit more often than they did in 2024. It doesn't necessarily need to be Tyreek, but they need to at least keep defenses honest. I don't mind taking free yards. It's just when you're not pushing the ball down the field. And I mean, the biggest problem I think in 2024 was being able to run the ball. When Austin Jackson went down with injury, your yards per average dropped so much. And that really hurt. Yeah, the Thursday night games. But at least with the Thursday night games, it does seem like it does give you more rest after the fact. And, you know, those can always be huge because it gives you, like, obviously those are short weeks, but then you get the nice little rest after. And I think the Dolphins have some games that they need to win after the fact of the Thursday night games because, yeah, after Thursday night, they play a Monday night game, so they get a nice extra day there, and they play the Jets. And I think beating the Jets in week 4 is a huge game. And then after the Ravens game, they play the Bills. So 2 big divisional games after the Thursday night games, and I think that's kind of the positive takeaway from those. And who knows? And I actually think, like, I don't mind the Thursday night games either because they're 2 big opponents. You play the Bills and Ravens Thursday night. I think Thursday night games can be a little bit of a coin toss at time. And especially when your teams at home have a huge advantage and you play the Ravens at home, I actually think that gives probably the Dolphins a better chance of competing with Baltimore than in you know, a typical game, because we saw what happened last time we faced the Ravens and just a normal 1 p.m. game on the road. So I actually think it probably at least gives the Dolphins some sort of differing advantage compared to usual. And then who knows? I mean, you play the Bills Thursday night on the road. That probably will not be pretty. But yeah, at least the next week you'll have rest going into the Jets game. Let me see. Yeah, I'm like 3 hours from Atlanta, so I might go to the Falcons game. Brunskill. I wouldn't mind adding him as a depth guy. I haven't watched a ton of film on him recently, Elwood, so I don't know. I would have to, if they signed him, I would watch the film and like give like a full-on analysis. But he is one of the names that I think is like would be nice to add, because I don't think if there's positions I'm looking to add in free agency still, it's one corner. I think corner for sure they need to add in free agency, especially with Ramsey leaving. And then I wouldn't mind adding like an O-line depth, because there is still some decent O-linemen out there. And there's still some corner options. I think everywhere else is kind of like, I don't think you're going to find a wide tight end out there. I don't think you're going to find like safeties really. I mean, you could add a safety, but it's some aging veterans. I don't know if they want to do that. I think at safety, they're going to try to roll with some of the young guns this year. I really hope Marshall and Trader show potential and are positive. Yeah, I think Trader could actually have an impact in year 1. I'm not sure. I think Marshall, if he played, it would be a very up and down showing. Like, he'd probably make some positive plays, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like what you've seen out of most of the Dolphins' young corners, where like they're still having their struggles, especially man-to-man. And it's just a tough position to be thrown into, I think, year 1. Especially where I think the Dolphins are played more man-to-man. Safety, it's like a lot of reps, like you're not even involved. You just need to play disciplined and do your job. While corner, it's like one-on-one versus some of the best athletes in the world. Oh, Patrick Paul, yeah. I mean, he's a mammoth, like you said, Zim. You think we could beat the Bills this year? I mean, I don't think they'll beat them on the road week 3 in Thursday night. I think that would be if they won that one, I would be a little bit surprised, but maybe you catch them off guard early. But last year they, took it to you. But I think week 10, you kind of played them around that range last year on the road, and you actually almost won that game. Like Tua, it seemed like that was probably the best your offense has looked, and I think the best Tua has looked versus the Bills. So maybe they found something there. So I think week 10 at home, a 1 p.m. game at home. It is November, but it's early November, so you might still get a nice little humidity thing going on. And it is after a Thursday night game, so you should have rest. I don't know what the Bills what they're coming off of, but that is not a terrible spot to be in versus Buffalo. Like, that actually, I think, gives you a better chance to beat them in probably most recent scenarios, considering how the schedule has worked out for them. So I think they have a chance in that one, but who knows what the teams are going to look like at that point with injuries and stuff. But I'm not going to ever bet for Miami to beat the Bills until they can actually prove it, because they are basically, you know, how the Dolphins have basically ran the Patriots and Jets whenever Tua plays. It's pretty much been the opposite. We've only beaten them once. Hey, at least we've beaten them once because we're undefeated versus Patriots and Jets. Yeah, I don't know, Michael. I'm pretty sure Trevor Penning has been like pretty awful for the Saints, like really bad. So I would have to see like how he would fit this scheme, because I do think the Dolphins scheme, if you do fit the Dolphins scheme and like you struggled in other places, but I'm pretty sure the Saints last year actually ran Shanahan style system and he still struggled. So I don't know. That one I'd have to watch the film, because I have not watched Penning since he came out of college. And I wasn't a huge Penning fan, at least like when he was, because he went first round and I didn't think he was a first round player. So if he struggled last year in the Shanahan system because they had Kubiak, I would probably, I mean, as a depth guy, it probably wouldn't be that bad, but it's probably one I would avoid. Yeah, Jaylen Watson would probably be the best option, but I don't think I would trade a day 2 pick for Watson or anyone, honestly. Like, if we're going to trade, I would only trade day 3 picks. I just don't think any of those guys move the needle that much. Like, yeah, it would help your corner room, but like, I don't think trading those guys like really moves the needle too much in the most positive direction. So I'd rather just keep your picks than use those picks for next year to really like, I think that could help you out short term, but I think long term, having as many picks as possible, especially in, you know, round 3, even though you are going to have 2 round 3 stuffs. Where am I? Where was I reading? Okay. Yeah, definitely a line depth corner. They could throw Cam out there. They probably will, Ryan. I think if Cam's healthy, they're going to give him a shot to play. But this will probably be his last opportunity. So he has to stay healthy this season, because Cam Smith has had more injuries than, you know, almost anyone on the roster. Like Austin Jackson, Jaylen Phillips have actually been missing more time than like Tua was, and Tua's, you know, obviously had a lot of injuries. Which week is Tua getting injured? I mean, I'm not playing that game. What are backup QBs able to run the way Tua does if Tua is unable to play? I mean, not to Tua's level. That's the problem, I think, you know, that's why the backup quarterback situation's been so tough, because Tua has a very specific skill set. In like, there's only a handful of QBs in the league that have that type of skill set that win in that certain way. That's why Tua is so good for the scheme, because there's not a lot of QBs that have that type of skill set. And all of them are kind of in that Shanahan tree, or like, you know, like Goff isn't in a Shanahan tree, but he's in like that sort of same realm. Like the Goffs, the Purdy, CJ Stroud is another one that runs the same system. And they all have a feel for it, but finding backup quarterbacks with that is always very tough. Because a lot of backup quarterbacks end up being guys that you're trying to develop, and to play in the Dolphins scheme, it's less about your physical skill set and more about processing things pre-snap, reading leverage and windows, getting the ball out with insane anticipation. Because if you have insane anticipation, you're typically a starter, and even a lot of starters don't have insane anticipation. So that's why, like, when your backups come in, you can see a fault. But you did bring in you brought in Zach Wilson, who, you know, he's the one you're trying to develop and you hope takes a step up. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And he has experience playing in the system. And then same with Ewers. You drafted Ewers, who he actually will play with some anticipation and timing, because that's all he did at Texas. He's actually kind of in that same realm of player, like play style as Tua. And they ran a very similar offense with the RPOs and stuff. So I do feel the quarterbacks will do a better job this season. Obviously not to that same level, though, as Tua. Marshall to cover number 1. And yeah, Marshall definitely has potential. I just don't know if I see like a year 1 breakout for him. Like, he definitely has a great physical skill set. His athleticism's there. My favorite film of him was him going against Malik Neighbors, who's obviously a beast. Which on the team wins the twerk off rider? My money is on Jonah or Benito. More Kellebaugh. What are you talking about? Yeah, I want to see Ewers a ton in the preseason. Lots of love out there to re-sign Xavien Howard. No thanks. It just feels. I mean, it just feels pointless to me. I don't think he's the same player he used to be. I'd rather just roll with young guys and see what you have in the young guys, because I think this build is more built in. Like, obviously, you're not giving up on this season. Like, you're still trying to win this season. But I think you're trying to see what you have for next year. So when you go into next year, you need to know how many corners you need to add, how many safeties you need to add. And I just want to give the young guys the chance at this point. I just feel like he's a developmental stopper, because he would be a 1-year rental. Watson is not that good in my opinion. Yeah, he would be a good fit if we were going more man to man, but he's not worth a 3rd round pick. But yeah. But would you still add as free agents after Ramsey is traded? No, basically what you're saying, I would add probably a corner, but O-line depth for sure. I don't know if Hernandez and Scherf would want to join to be depth. I think Brunskill is used to that, so it might be him. But like, I don't know if I want to add corners that is like a true 1-year rental. I do prefer Douglas though over Howard, because like Howard didn't even play last season, and also Howard is kind of just I don't know. I don't want him in the room personally. I'm kind of done with Xavien Howard. Wilson has mobility. Yeah, Zach does have mobility. What decision would you like to change that Greer made this offseason? What decision would I have changed that Greer made this offseason? I gotta think about that. Did we let anyone go that I wanted to re-sign? Not really. There's probably some, I can't remember. There was free agent signings that I saw that I would have made, but I can't remember them off the top of my head anymore. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have traded up in the 2nd round. I probably would have just stayed at 48. Yeah, you would have lost out on Jonah, and I do like Jonah, but like I would have stayed at 48 and then probably just taken Ratledge, who I still think is good, and then I would have, still had that pick at 98. And then we'll see. I guess I probably would have been able to, could have taken like either a D tackle there, maybe missed out on Jordan Phillips, or you could have taken corner, use that pick on another type of trade. Who knows? Give me Zai and Newman. I don't know who you're talking about. Probably just missed with this. No, we didn't talk about Asante Samuel Jr. Dude, if Asante, well, one, he's coming off a pretty big injury. Like he just had, I think it was reported that he's recovering from, wasn't it like a neck injury or something? So it's pretty big. He is young, which I do like. Like he could be a potential long-term thing, but he has a big injury history, and he is a guy that doesn't like to tackle, which I don't really like. So to me, he would have to come in pretty cheap, and I don't think he's going to come cheap. So it's probably going to be a pass for me as well. I think that would be, I don't really want to take on any injury-prone guys unless they are like cheap. I think getting injury-prone guys that are cheap is totally fine in free agency, because like it's like a risk versus reward thing. Like you got them pretty cheap, so the risk is mitigated, and then you can get a pretty big reward out of it. If it doesn't work out, it's like, okay, we spent cheap on it. And then it allows you, and if he did get hurt, I mean, it would allow your younger guys still to get a chance. So I wouldn't hate it. It just depends on the price. Oh, shit. I'm dropping frames. Great. Okay. You think there's any chance for Ramsey to stay? I would be very surprised if he stays, honestly. Deron Bland is interesting, but I don't think that, I'm pretty sure they want to move on from Diggs, because I know Cowboys fans, and they have like, they're like inside people, and what I've heard is they don't want to keep Trevon Diggs anymore there, and he's coming off, but he's also coming off an injury, so he probably won't be ready for the start of the season. Oh, you're talking about Jair Alexander. would solve our cornerback problems. Yeah, but you would have to trade for both of them, and I don't think they're gonna do 2 trades. Because Zai is already. I mean, they could have gotten Zai Alexander. He was a late pick. Would he go like 7th round or undrafted? Rookie minicamp. Any highlights from? I've been absent after the draft. From what I have heard, like, you know, Kenneth Grant looks like an absolute freak moving out there. There's a lot of praise for, like, people think Trader could potentially play earlier than expected. He has like that instincts and versatility. What else was there? I think Gordon looked pretty solid. People are hyping up Theo Weiss Jr., the UDFA, but it was very quick. There wasn't a ton to go off of, so it's very early, but those are the kind of things that I've seen and heard. One great move should have, yeah. Honestly, yeah, that was. Yeah, I don't know if they could have done that. I don't think I would have done that. It was just too much because they didn't have 98 anymore. If they still had 98, they could have tried to trade up, but I wouldn't have traded a future second. Even though I did love Ravel. The only trade up I would have made is if you still had 98, I would have traded up a few spots to get Xavier Watts because Xavier Watts went like 96 or something. Which rookie will perform their role best this year? I think Kenneth Grant. It's not always the case that it's your first round pick, but I do think Grant is going to have a very strong year. I think Jonah will be solid. I don't think he will be great right away, but I think he will be solid in his role. I think Grant will be like solid pretty quickly, and then he'll like kind of develop kind of like Chop did, but won't have as slow a start as Chop did. Kind of how I'm seeing that role. I think Phillips will be more impactful than people think. And then everyone else, I think, will be like either not play much or they'll be like role players. Like Gordon will play a little bit, but not a ton. I think Trader will see playing time eventually. Trading for Diggs as well because we drafted Igbo over him. Yeah. Oh, I wasn't talking about trading for Diggs. I was just saying the Cowboys don't want to trade Bland because they're looking to trade Diggs. And I would not be. I mean, no one should trade for Diggs. Yo, what's up, Derek? Why didn't easy workout sucks a need and fit? I mean, you know, he was a 4th round pick. 4th round picks are very, you know, hit or miss. They actually probably miss more than they hit. So I mean, that's just the nature of the game. And then I think with Ezukanma, I think I remember he didn't really play as a rookie, which, you know, that happens for 4th round picks. And then his second year, which is where I think he was going to get more playing time, he had like an injury where he missed like a majority of that season, right? So I think that really hurt his chance of developing. And then 2, he was also not a finished product when he came in. Like, he was really only a yak guy coming out of Texas Tech. And I think when you're a big yak guy, you have to be able to do at least a little bit more down the field. And they never really gave him that opportunity. He wasn't really a polished route runner. I think the thing that matters for the Dolphins is not necessarily you being a polished route runner, but being in the right place at the right time. Because with Tua, it's all about being in that place where he expects you to be and throwing with anticipation and accuracy. And I think that's where Ezukanma just didn't pick up the playbook well enough to actually see that playing time, is being in the right place at the right time. So I think that's kind of why it didn't work out. I think he got a little unlucky with his second year being his shot and then getting that injury, and then him also not developing from the mental side. Yeah, that's the biggest sort of hope, is that the defensive front can take over. There will definitely be games where they will take advantage of your secondary, like it's just inevitable. But there will definitely be games where like your defensive front will carry you and like make the secondary's life so much easier. And I think that's why they might be going more press man, because if you think about it, last year when the Dolphins, they had still a pretty good pressure front, like Chop, Sealer, Calais were getting a lot of quick pressures. But the Dolphins were kind of playing those soft zones, especially on early downs, and giving up easy completions. So I think maybe playing more press man, you're not giving up as many easy completions now. and you can make the quarterback hold onto the ball like a tick longer and then allow your guys to get there. Maybe that will also cause more turnovers. I think that's kind of the hope that they're thinking right now. Is Achane worth giving an extension this upcoming season? I actually think so, because I always look at because one, I actually don't love giving running backs second contracts, but Achane is still pretty young and he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his tires. And he does have a great receiving role, so that I think is one of the reasons I would be like totally open to giving Achane an extension, is he's like the best receiving back in the league. And I think with when you look at your like extensions that you need to give out, Achane was really the only hit in the 2022 and 2023 draft. That's usually where you're looking. Like after Achane, the only extension you really have to give after that is like Chop, and that's, you know, a couple years down the line where you even have to start thinking about that. So like Achane's one of the only players on the team where you even need to really even consider giving an extension. And since it's only him, I would be down to give him an extension. Like the years ago when it was like, oh, do we need to get, because the 2021 draft, when we were like, do we give Waddle, Phillips, or Holland extensions? Who do we give extensions? And they only extended Waddle, which I think was the right move, because I would have extended Waddle. I loved Phillips, but he was coming off the injury, so like you couldn't really risk extending him unless you got him for like super cheap. And then Holland, I don't think that they made the right move not extending him for sure. So like I'm looking at him like Achane's really the only one that is needing extending coming up early on anyways. When does Jordan Phillips start? I love the pass rush breakdown. Speaking of potential, wow. Yeah, I posted a Jordan Phillips breakdown yesterday. If you guys haven't checked that out, go check it out. It's just like pure pass rush stuff of him, because I think there's a narrative created, because he had 0 sacks in college, right? So people thought he couldn't pass rush, but he actually has a high pass rush win rate. And if you watch his film, like he's winning a lot. And I also talked about like his stance that got changed up at the Shrine Bowl, put him in more of a pass rush position. And I think he's going to be a better pass rusher than people think. I don't think he'll ever, maybe he'll start in base when you have like 3 defensive tackles out there, you know, like, so I think he could start in that scenario, but like your starting group is mainly a nickel group, and that means you only have 2 defensive tackles out there. So I don't think he'll necessarily be the starter, but like I think he could take over that third role where like you're rotating in a lot over Benito Jones pretty quickly. And I think he should. I think to me, he might already be better than Benito. I think he's better than Benito Jones, just already at his role, and he has so much more potential, and he's 20, so I would love to see Phillips take over pretty quickly. Rate our secondary 1 to 10. I mean, if Ramsey leaves, I'm gonna rate it with assuming Ramsey's not here and we haven't added anyone. It's very low. It's like a 3, maybe like. That's just what it is. Like, you really don't have, like, the only proven player out there is Kader Kohou. And, you know, I think Kader is a massive overachiever for a UDFA. Like, that's why, like, I don't understand the Kohou hate sometimes, because Kohou is like a huge overachiever, way over expectations as an undrafted guy. But outside of Kohou, who's like, you know, was solid last year for you, you don't have anyone that's proven. Melifonwu, I think, can be a good safety, but he's, you know, got a big injury prone. And then everyone else is pretty much a depth guy that's going to be starting. So it's like a 3 at best. You could argue even less. Yeah. Washington underrated, in my opinion. What? Washington who? Are you talking about Malik? Or are we talking about the team? I just forget who we were talking about. Also, speaking of Washington, I'm gonna do a Taj Washington breakdown probably next week, so keep an eye out for that. We haven't talked about Taj in a while, and I kind of wanted to go back to the players from last season, because I'm finishing up the UDFAs later today. Teddy Cushy film breakdown will be out at noon Eastern, so check that out in like, you know, a little over an hour. Western Michigan guy, he's another guy that I got to a little bit late, but the Western Michigan O-line men are actually, there's something there to work with out of the UDFAs. more so than some of the other guys that I've made breakdowns on recently that I think they're better than. But after I finished up this UDFA class, I kind of want to go back to last year's guys. Like, obviously Taj wasn't a UDFA guy, but I want to go back to the guys that are still around from last year, like Taj Washington, Grayson Murphy. I want to talk about those guys that like showed a lot of potential but got injured. I think it's going to be a tough path because when you're like a low round pick or UDFA from the previous year and you're coming back and you missed the first year with an injury pretty much, it is tough to stand out because recency bias kind of plays into like the new class and it gives them an advantage. But there's something to work with those guys, so I do want to talk about them again because I do like Taj and Grayson Murphy. Probably going to do a video on Patrick McMorris again because we didn't get to see a ton of McMorris last year, and I'm expecting a kind of a breakout from McMorris. Malik, oh yeah, okay. Oh, I love Malik Washington. If you guys been following here, you know I'm a big Malik fan. He was my favorite player in that draft class before we even drafted him. He was like my guy. And getting him in the 6th round, great value. He's already outplayed his 6th round value in year 1. Like, he was making plays. He was a quality returner, quality hands, shifty. I think him and Nick Westbrook-Akine as like I think they'll both be. I consider both Malik and Nick Westbrook-Akine your wide receiver 3s. They're both wide receiver 3s that play different roles. One's Westbrook can play more outside, but he's also like a big slot. Like, they're both good in the slot, but they're very different players. So I kind of had them as a wide receiver 3A and 3B, which is kind of dumb to say, but I'm a fan of the receiver group after Tyreek and Waddle more so this year because I love the Westbrook signing. I think the Westbrook signing was a super steal. And then Malik I think is going to get even better in year 2. And then hopefully Tyreek in his last season in a Dolphins uniform, hopefully he doesn't cause any drama and actually plays up to what he was. We need folks to step up when our starters go down. All this talent we want to see come in and ball. Oh, I agree. Yeah, they definitely need. I think that's probably one of the biggest things people should be watching for this upcoming season is how some of those younger guys play, whether it's the late round picks or UDFAs, like the later round guys. Can any of them step up and be like future pieces? Because I think that's a big part of this upcoming year. Because obviously you're still competing, but you should always be looking to the future. And if you look at like far ahead, think about the roster. You have some free agents next year, but you don't have a ton of big name free agents for Miami. I think you got a couple, but if you look at the team, like you're gonna probably cut Tyreek. If you cut Tyreek and you trade Ramsey this year, it saves a bunch of money in cap space. The quarterback position, we have no idea really what's going to go on there. If Tua stays healthy or not, that can kind of change things. So kind of ignoring the QB position, but you're going to need secondary. So find out what you have in your secondary this year out of the young guys, because pretty much your corners are all unproven, and the guys that is proven is Kohu, and Kohu will be a free agent after this season. Same with safety. Safety, you pretty much, the guys you brought in are on 1-year deals, so they're 1-year rentals. We'll see what they prove. And then after that, it's a bunch of young guys on rookie contracts who are late round picks. So you got to see if they can prove that they're a starter. That just gives you one less position to worry about in the offseason. And then like D-line, I mean, you're probably going to need more edge next year because you still have Chop, but Phillips and Chubb could both be gone. D-tackle, you'll be fine. You have guys on these. You have a lot of guys on now rookie contracts, and Sealer still will be here next year. Same with Brooks. You probably want to add an off-ball linebacker with Brooks because he'll still be here another season. I would love to extend Jordan Brooks, actually. Jordan Brooks is another player that I would consider extending because he's still under 30. Let me look up Jordan Brooks' age because he's not old yet, right? He's like, what, 27 or something? Because I would extend him to another couple of years. Yeah, he's 27, so he'll turn 28 during the season. I would extend him another couple of years, keep him around, make sure that's not a big need. He's one of the guys on his rookie contracts that I would consider extending. Yes, I am definitely expecting a corner signing or even a trade. I think more so a signing makes sense. I feel like with the Dolphins are going to consider a trade, but I don't think they're going to make a big trade. Because just looking at every move they made this offseason, it does look like they are looking to the future. They even traded picks for the future. So unless they get someone cheaper than expected, or if the Ramsey thing is a player for player trade and a picks involved, that could make sense. But yeah, I think post June 1st. Safety, I'm not expecting things to be added. They already added multiple safeties. I think they're going to see what they got in that group. Do you think with roster improvements we'll have less screen passes? I do think we will have less screen passes because of the offense, of what they did on offense. Specifically on O-line. Like, they're still going to run screens. It's not like they're just going to get rid of that. But last year, they couldn't run the ball. So McDaniel was like, dude, the screen game was pretty much their running game. It obviously didn't work very well, but there was nothing really to do because running the ball didn't work. Throwing the ball down the field didn't work. So I do expect to see many less screen passes. Which is good because I need our average depth of target to go up a lot. Over under on kids / touchdowns this season for Tyreek. He might have more kids than touchdowns. Yeah, you would save a lot on Tyreek. Obviously, you're missing out on a huge talent, but I do think Tyreek after the season will start regressing anyways. But I mean, with the headache that he causes, he's also just not a good person. He quit on the team last year. It's time to move on. And I've talked about it. Waddle, if there's any player in the league that can potentially replace Tyreek's production and like the skill set that he brings, you have the player on your team already that has the best chance of doing that, and that's Jaylen Waddle. So you need to replace Waddle, but I don't think you need to replace Waddle with a. So you replace Tyreek with Waddle, and then you replace Waddle with like a differing skill set. Because Tyreek and Waddle's like skill set, having both of them is nice, but sometimes it is a bit redundant. Like, I think having someone that complements Waddle a little bit more. So yeah, receiver will probably be another need next year. Not a huge need, but you do need to add one. Like, next year, secondary will be huge. You'll need to add like an edge and a receiver. Even if you re-sign like Phillips, you'll probably still need to add an edge. Probably sign some off-ball linebackers again, like you did last year. I think the draft's off-ball linebackers are better next year. So maybe that's what you do. You go into the draft and take off-ball. You're still always looking to add O-line, probably some tackles. But at least, you know, your interior O-line are all under contract, at least your starters. Because you still have Daniels, Brewer, and Jonah all under contract for next year as well. You could also sign Brewer to an extension. Also, those extensions I'm talking about, it depends if McDaniel is still here. Because I think if you change coaching staff, that does change. It could change up how I view some of those players. Devon, yeah, I'll have to check him out. Compare 23 offense to this one, we are better, right? Offensively, I think it's pretty similar, but it's pretty similar. In 2023, we were the #1 statistical offense of the league. Obviously, we fell off at the end of the year because of injuries, but we were statistically the best offense in the league that season. I think it's pretty similar because I think O-line, you're probably better on the interior. It's pretty close. And you're probably slightly worse. You're worse at tackle because you lose Armstead. Losing Armstead is pretty big. But Armstead also was like missing games throughout that season, up and down. Maybe having Patrick Paul just be in there the whole time playing if he stays healthy. And if he takes a step, it's not like a huge thing. Like, I think missing the guards is probably the biggest thing. I think if your O-line stays healthy, your 2023 team will look better. Because receiver-wise, you're probably better. Because I think Nick Westbrook, QnA, and Malik will give you more than what you had that year. Running back, you're probably similar if you have Achane. You don't have Mostert. Mostert put up crazy production. But I am expecting Jaylen Wright to take a jump. You're better at tight end because you didn't have Jonnu. So yeah, it's probably pretty even. But that's not a bad thing. 2023, you were very good. defensively is where you're at a loss right now because your secondary, you have nothing there really. You have a bunch of question marks in your secondary. Like nothing is a for sure thing. Offensively though, if you stay healthy, I expect the offense to be much better this year. But health, as we've talked about, is a key thing. Is a huge thing. You think McDaniel would be better as an OC? I mean, if he gets fired as the head coach, he will probably go be a successful offensive coordinator somewhere. Yeah, I think it just depends on like it's tough to say without being in the locker room and we don't know. So we've heard some people being like, oh, they don't respect McDaniel, but then we've seen other people be like the opposite. So it really just depends on like if he could actually lead a team, and if he can't, then yeah, he'll be a better offensive coordinator. In the right, like you get the right place around him, put him in a team with that type of quarterback, he'll be a good OC. Is Stephen Ross the real problem with this team? He's been probably if you're looking at it from like a 20-year perspective, then yeah, he's probably been the biggest problem with this team. If he got fired, would you say Weaver takes over head coach? I think there's a decent chance of that happening. I think it depends on who's available after the season as like head coaching options, but I think Weaver would have a really good shot of winning the head coach. Because I think people like him, and it wouldn't be a horrible shout. He just needs to bring in an offensive coordinator that fits with what you have. The biggest thing with him would just be getting in the right offensive coordinator. Yeah, the backup centers fit the scheme. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah, any final questions? Hit me with them. Yeah. And from my understanding, Derek, is the coaching staff and the front office is a lot safer than I think the fans think. And there's some things that play into it, but like I think they're gonna try to keep the guys on. I think unless the Dolphins I think are gonna have to have a really bad season for them to blow it up, which is possible. I think with injuries, the Dolphins could have a really bad season, but man, that schedule is weak, and it is pretty favorable in a lot of scenarios. And you still got a lot of talent to work with. I know you're definitely weaker in some spots than usual that you don't want, like the secondary, but are we winning our division? No. I think if they make playoffs, it would be wild card, which I think is possible. Winning the division, I mean, I feel like I'm not going to get my hopes up for that. We haven't won the division in a long time. And the Bills are still a very good team, and we've always really struggled with the Bills. I know it's early, but you have any specific guys on your watch list for the next college season? Let's see. Okay. So one guy I'm going to watch coming up next is Michigan State's quarterback, Aiden Chili's. He's actually kind of interesting, and I think he's only 19 years old, and he has some pretty good traits to work with. I think he's a quarterback next year that could take a step that's kind of underrated. But I'm going to watch him soon. Peter Woods out of Clemson, absolutely dominant defensive tackle. The QB class in general, I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Just scrolling down, I have a bunch of like people's like clips saved that I'm going to check out. Obviously, like people talking about like Lenoris Sellers and stuff like that. The Florida D tackle is really good. Caleb Banks, he's going to be dominant. Oh, I really like Terrell. You know AJ Terrell, the Falcons corner, he's really good. His brother is at Clemson, Xavien Terrell. Dude's an absolute stud. Jermod McCoy from Tennessee. Like I go to all to the Tennessee home games. I think McCoy was Tennessee's best player last year, and he was a sophomore. So he's a name to watch out for corners. There's some good corners there. But yeah, I haven't started the 2026 class yet, but I actually am going to start the 2026 class pretty soon. If Weaver is the interim, who should be the OC, Bevel or Frank Smith? I guess Bevel would make more sense, but I wouldn't mind seeing what Frank Smith has as an OC, because I don't think we've got to see him like call plays. So I wouldn't mind giving Frank Smith if that were to happen. Just see what he has, you know, because Bevel, we've seen him at other teams calling plays. This will be this best as we've been, where playoffs actually a thing in years, but we hate Mike McDaniel. To what alternative? Oh, I don't hate Mike McDaniel. I'm one of Mike McDaniel's probably biggest defenders. I feel like that's like one of the things is like, if we do move on from McDaniel, there's a decent chance it gets worse, because it has been much worse before McDaniel showed up for Miami. We were in purgatory, not even making playoffs for many, many seasons. So I'm still a big believer in McDaniel. I still think he's going to be here after this season anyways. I just don't know with how some of the weaknesses you have on this team, if it's going to, you know, be too great this year. But who knows? I think things can change a lot. What do you think about the press man blitz heavy D? I mean, like the Flores stuff, I think Flores went a little bit too over the top with it. I don't mind it. I think the Dolphins should mix it in more. I don't think they're ever going to be a blitz heavy defense, though. I think we're going to run more press man this year, but I still don't think Weaver's going to do a ton of blitz heavy stuff. If they blitz, they do a lot of like pressure packages where he still brings 4, but it's just a different type of blitz. He's not going to blitz a lot more than that, though. Biggest thing holding back our team this year? I mean, secondary and O-line depth. I think if your O-line gets injured, and then, yeah, if Tua gets injured too, obviously. But I think O-line depth is really big. And then your secondary, it's going to be hard to overcome. It'll be a whole lot worse without McDaniel. Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing about firing McDaniel that sometimes people don't think about is the offensive players that you have on this roster are so built for his system that if you brought in anyone else, like it would have to be a Shanahan. Like to be, say Weaver was your head coach, he would have to bring in an offensive coordinator that comes from that Shanahan system. Because if he didn't, you would have to do a complete reset on offense. Because like Austin Jackson would have to be gone. I think you'd probably try to move. Patrick Paul would probably get a lot worse, I think, outside of the Dolphins system. Same thing for Brewer at center. Your guards might be able to survive in another system, but it depends on the system for sure. Your running backs, I think, were built for your scheme. So if you go more gap, heavy run scheme stuff, they would even fit the scheme worse. Same thing with Jonnu Smith. He would be worse. Your receivers would probably regress in a different offense. So like I think that's one thing people don't think about is you would probably have to reset your entire offense, and that would be a long process. Yeah. I think I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the Teddy Cushy Western Michigan tackle video film breakdown later today. I'll see you guys next time.